In this nugget, you and I get to discuss and demonstrate how to configure time settings, including NTP, to synchronize our time on the NetScaler. We'll also take a look at the critical step of saving our configurations as well as backing them up. Let's begin. I've got a question for you. If a tree fell scalar, we want to have accurate time for lots of reasons. For example, having logs that have accurate date and timestamps so we can correlate those to other events that are happening in the network and with our servers. If we're working with digital certificates, that's also important for validating a certificate, because if a certificate is only good between, for example, this year and next year, and one of our systems thinks that it's 2 years from now or 2 years in the past, that could result in a failure of a device not accepting a certificate because it thinks the certificate is out of date range. And overall, it's just a good idea to have accurate, correct time on our systems. On the initial configs of a NetScaler, we're given the opportunity to configure a time zone. But if we got that wrong or we want to change it, we can go ahead and do that under System Settings. Then also under System, there's an option for setting up our NTP server. And also I want to share with you the diagnostic section under System, because that's where we can go to view the differences, for example, between our saved configuration, that's the one the NetScaler is going to boot to, and what we're currently running. Because I also want to we're also going to want to use the services of a network time protocol server, which uses UDP port 123. And under System, if we select NTP servers, there aren't any by default, but we can add one. We simply click on Add, or we could right-click here and click on Add. Either way will give us the opportunity to add a new NTP server. So let's click on Add. Now all we need is an NTP server. So let's do this. Let's go out to Google, and we'll Google NTP pool US. And here's the North America pool at www.pool.ntp.org. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this top one and just copy that. Now, in your environment, you very likely already have either your own NTP in a production environment. We're going to want to take additional steps to make sure we're not going to get spoofed on the time, that no one's going to lie to us about the time. Let's go to a command prompt and just find out what the IP is behind that NTP server. So let's do a ping. We could also use NSLOOKUP, and that would also work. And we'll paste that name in, and then we'll press enter. And that verifies a couple things. Number one, that server is up, and we also know what the IP address is. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Mark and select that and put that in my buffer. And then we'll go back to our NetScaler, and we'll simply paste that in. And I'm going to accept the defaults. If we wanted to edit this server, we could right-click on it, click on Edit. And if we had multiple NTP servers and we wanted this to be our preferred NTP server, we could click that checkbox. And if we were using authentication, we could also supply a key. And in our lab environment, I'm just going to accept the defaults and click on OK. Now, just because we have an NTP server configured does not mean that we're actively using it and synchronizing to that NTP server. One last step we'd want to do is we'd want to go ahead and right-click on this NTP server, and then from the drop-down, we can select NTP synchronization. And what's really happening with this drop-down, it's really just providing us this button, this button, this button, plus the actions, which is NTP sync and NTP parameters, which we'd get from this drop-down as well. So there's more than one way to get to the action that you want to perform. In fact, I'm going to do it from this drop-down just because we can. click on it, and then click the radio button that indicates that we want to do synchronization, and click on OK. Now with that set, if we go back to System, here once again it's showing us the time zone we're configured for and the date as of the time that we went to this System tab. We could also go up here and click on Refresh. To keep that NTP server the next time this guy reboots, we want to take the running configuration and save it. The way we do that is with this icon up here on the top right, which looks like a little floppy disk, which young kids today don't even know what that is. But back in the day, they had 8-inch floppies, then 5.25-inch floppies, then 3.5-inch floppies, which this is a representation of. And then most computers for the last decade have no floppies at all. But yet the icon persists. So we can click on that. It says, do you want to save the running configuration? I'm going to say yes. And we can also create backups as well. And to create backups, we go under System to expand that. And down near the bottom, we have Backup and Restore. It may be in a slightly different location. We'll click on yes, and if there aren't any changes, it'll simply tell us with this message saying, hey, you're good. The running configuration hasn't changed, and it matches the save configuration. In this nugget, we've demonstrated how to configure the time zone as well as configure an NTP server. We also took the additional steps of saving our configuration, which is critical, as well as backing up that config. I appreciate you joining me for this nugget. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.